What's up, everybody? My name's Trey. This is Ramsey. Welcome back to Better Days of Sports, because we have an amazing episode for you today, because the college landscape kind of got turned on its head a little bit this past week, and we have a lot to go over. But if you are somebody new to the channel, new to the podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to get notified every time we post a video, and leave a comment in the comment section down below. What was your favorite storyline from this past week in college football? But the first one we're going to kind of get into, and probably the most talked about game that happened this past week, was UCLA's just come out of nowhere upset against Penn State. If you don't know, UCLA fired their head coach. Tim Skipper actually took over as the interim coach, and he talked about in his interview that he had never called plays from his headset before. He was clicking the wrong buttons. He didn't know what to do. He was talking without the actual headset down. So not a great look, but a beautiful win by UCLA. We learned a lot about not only Nico, their quarterback, when it came to his development, because a lot of people really wrote him off after leaving Tennessee. They said that he left so much money on the table to go to a school that has not necessarily dominated in football in the slightest over its last 10 years, really. And everybody wrote him off. He was supposed to be a top pick. He was going to go in the first round, potentially, if he stayed at Tennessee. So it's actually really nice to kind of see him get back in the saddle and play with a different type of intensity and a different type of aggressiveness that I just did not see him playing with the beginning halves of this year. He improved in basically all areas in this game, and I think this is going to be a real turning point for UCLA when it comes to their season. They had a very rocky start. It seemed like they just didn't have an identity, but such a gritty win, such a underdog story is kind of transitioning into what UCLA is. So it was really good to see. But how are you feeling about this monumental upset that was UCLA over Penn State?
Well, when I look at this in the grand scheme of things, I think that it is the ultimate pitfall and hardship of Penn State as an organization, as a school institution, as a football team, right? And it just snowballed out of nowhere for them. Like you said, it started with losing at home against Oregon. Very big time matchup. It happens. Lost in overtime. Get over it, move on, go to the next game. And then they lose to UCLA. That is a problem, because why, if we are the institution that we call ourselves Penn State, why are we doing this? And we saw this similar to what we experienced with Clemson early on in the year, where they're just dropping multiple games back to back to back. And I think when you look at Penn State as a whole, I don't understand why they have fallen so far based on what we saw from them last season and how well they performed last season. Drew Aller looked so great that we thought that he would be draft eligible last season. Now, we don't even know if he's going to be a first rounder based on his season-ending injury that has resulted in this loss that they just experienced this past weekend as well. So I think this is more a testament to Penn State and less a testament to UCLA, because while I do respect the camaraderie that they have rallied around their team with the back-to-back wins against Penn State and Michigan State, but if we look at their schedule, they have a bye week, so they're riding high into the bye week. Great, they'll get to rest, they'll get to recoup, study the playbook a little bit more. After that bye week, they play Maryland. Great matchup for UCLA based on who they've beaten the past couple of weeks. And then they play Indiana, who just beat Oregon. We'll talk about that in a minute. Then they play Nebraska, who's also in the top 25. And then they play Ohio State, who is also the top team in the country. I don't see them going anywhere anytime soon. And they also play USC, who just beat the brakes off of Michigan. So I don't really think that we should be focusing on how great of a win this was for UCLA, and more so how bad of a dismantelization, if that's even a term. If it is, I'm going to create it right now. That what happened with Penn State and their football team. So that's really how I feel about it. Kudos to UCLA, right? Nico, he has a lot of strides to prove after what happened last year with him and his departure from Tennessee. But I think this is more a testament to how that game kind of fell into UCLA's lap. and they just took advantage of it. That loss kind of, started the pitfall of that team and the fake ascension of UCLA. I don't see them going anywhere. I don't see them being ranked at any point in time this season. I think that this is a great rah-rah story that they can talk about at the end of the season so they can have something good to talk about for this season.
Well, don't worry, UCLA. I believe in you. Okay, this man has no faith in you. I might have no faith in terms of you being ranked, going to the playoffs. But you know what? With this type of momentum, I have faith that going into next year, we might see some good things come out of UCLA.
Answer me this.
Go ahead. What you got?
Is UCLA going to a bowl game this year?
Probably not, but we're not worried about that, okay? We are here for the excitement in the storyline. That is, UCLA did something beautiful that I was not expecting. On the flip side, Penn State, what are you doing, baby? What's going on here? Now, the whole reason we have coaches getting fired, we have players talking about how they want to transfer midseason, is because these are the type of games you simply cannot lose if you're Penn State. Now, the loss against Oregon, I understand. Another top-ranked team. Winning to overtime is a great game. I understand. If this was another top 10, even a top 25 ranked team, you lose close to them. Also, I understand. But losing to a winless UCLA team who absolutely dominated the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball is the main reason I think the firing happened. Simply because, this cannot happen if you're Penn State. You went from, we are supposed to be a title contender, we're trying to make the BCS championship, and now we're not even going to be ranked, and we have to change up pretty much our entire organization and how it's structured, because we might have every single person on our offense transfer, especially because our injury to our quarterback that just happened. So a lot of bad things I see from Penn State. And it's just, the future does not look very bright in my humble opinion. Now, next we have Michigan's fall out of the top 25. And we kind of talked about this, I guess, last episode when we did the top 25 rankings. And this just fall from being the beloved smash mouth, we, are coming off a championship Michigan team, is just far forgotten, it seems like. Michigan just needs to find an identity, and I think they're going to have a really hard time doing it. But how are you feeling about Michigan falling outside the top 25?
I think that this shouldn't necessarily be a shock to some, because and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in the sense of, as we had stated before, that this is going to specifically depend on Bryce Underwood's development as a quarterback. He is an undisputed true freshman quarterback in a Power 5 school, trying to figure it out, seemingly on the fly for the most part. Not necessarily his fault. They paid that man $12.5 million in NIL money to figure it out. So I think that he will be okay. I think we just need to understand that he's not even a month removed from his 18th birthday. And he needs to continuously have reps in this fast-paced, intense system so that he can evolve into the quarterback that they fully believe that he will transform into. So I don't think that we can focus too much about how Michigan has faltered, because they've had a tough schedule. Big Ten football is no joke, as we can see with how these teams have ascended this year in terms of Big Ten play. No shade to the SEC, but Michigan is going to be okay. You have to look at how they can regroup after this and see how they can come back as a better team. They play Michigan State, which is always a tough game. They play Washington, which is always a tough team. But these are winnable games. It's more so just allowing Bryce to be himself. He has to grow. And with that are going to be growing pains. And unfortunately, in college football, those growing pains usually amount to losses. But these are good losses, if that makes sense. He's going to be better from this. And we just need to understand that this is going to take time. I think Bryce is going to be okay. Bryce Underwood is the Michigan Wolverines. And running back is very solid. Haynes is a great running back. I think that their run, smash mouth type of football is effective with Bryce Underwood being an RPO option as well. It just needs time to gel. But in terms of the Wolverines football. Do you feel that I'm just thinking that we just need to be patient with Bryce Underwood's development, or is there more of a bigger issue here of them falling out of the top 25?
I think it's a combination of a few things. Like Michigan, at least when they won their championship, said that we are going to dominate both sides of the ball. We're going to be able to run the football, and we are going to be able to stop the run. And I thought they were going to build on that. Like, yes, you had a lot of players go to the NFL. You had coaches leave. You had players transfer away. You had players decommit because their coach went to the NFL. But I thought that was kind of ingrained in Michigan. Even when Michigan is not necessarily a powerhouse of a team, they're still a team that you don't want to play simply because they're going to run the ball down your throat. And it seems like they are now trying to make this like an air it out type of offense. And with the quarterback who looks like he's just having a hard time seeing the field just because, like I said, he is younger. He's understanding the system. There's just a lot of transitions between high school and college. I I don't know. I just don't feel good about Michigan, but we talked about that. But last week, week before, I just feel like it's going to be a real transition for Michigan because, especially in college football now, there really isn't a time in which you can say, okay, I see my quarterback is struggling. He really just needs a year or 2 years to develop because with the transfer portal, with five-star recruits getting recruited every year, you don't have that time to develop. You either get good quickly or we find somebody else who can get good quickly. So that's kind of my only issue with Michigan is if they're going to ride with this quarterback and he shows struggles next year, I think with how much you're paying him and just kind of the landscape, which is college football, where it's these are no longer really college athletes. These are essentially professionals who just happen to be in college because of how highly they're paid. And it's no longer, well, you're a college athlete. We're going to go through these growing pains together. We're going to grow together. You are my quarterback for this organization. It's, hey, can I go find a quarterback who might be a backup from Ohio State? Can I bring him over here and tell him he can get the starting job tomorrow? So I just feel like it's right now in college football, there is really no longer I understand you need time to develop when I can go find somebody who is already developed and allows me to compete for a championship next year. So the landscape I think is a little bit different now, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do kind of going forward.
I mean, that's very valid. You know, it's more so run like an organization now because we're paying 17-year-old kids $12.5 million to play college football, not professional football. So it's a little bit different when, you know, you do have, that's what the analogy says, you know, you have bird in the hand, two in the bush, right? Well, if we're going to invest almost $13 million in a freshman, I don't think we have the option to go another direction, right? You know, when you put that amount of zeros into a player, you kind of have to grow and roll with those punches, however they may look. Regroup, see how you assess after 1 year, and see how you can improve on the next year. He's not going anywhere. This is his team. If he does it right and he follows the system right, we'll be talking about Bryce Underwood, the same likes that we talked about Johnny Manziel, Reggie Bush, Saquon Barkley. Names that are synonymous with longevity on the college spectrum of greatness. So we have to give him time. And I know that sometimes time is precious, especially in college football. But right now, from what I've seen, the talent is there, the potential is there. You just have to scope it out a little bit. More reps, more experience.
Yeah, and there's still a lot more football to be played the rest of this year. So obviously he's going to have a lot more growth. But if he continues to play poorly and they just kind of have a sour taste in their mouth going into the offseason, I think this conversation is going to be very different come like this summer or something like that. But I definitely understand. Now, next up, we have Indiana. And I'm going to let you take this one away because you called this and it was like one of your main calls from our last podcast is IU upsetting Oregon. But go ahead and tell us about that, my boy.
Well, you know, I hate to be the person to say I told you so, but all I'm going to say is I had a really good feeling that this was going to be the game that showed us what IU is really about. And
Yeah.
if you can march into Autzen Stadium and beat the Ducks, who are on a winning streak, mind you, in their home, where it's extremely hard to beat them in general, and not only beat them by 2 or 3 points, they beat them by 10.
Yeah.
And for the most part, that game was mostly in IU's control for majority of the game. And for a team that has 0 5-star recruits, less than 10 4-star recruits, to be able to march into one of the most heralded Big Ten programs and beat them while they are a number 2 seed lets us know nothing more than that IU is a problem. They're legit. And that is a true testament to how Kurt Signetti has rebuilt the culture within Hoosier football, because we have never seen IU beat a team of that magnitude ever
Facts.
in their history. Look it up. Never seen it. So this is their statement win of all time. We're talking about a statement win for one of the most storied institutions in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
We witnessed it. So I hate to say it, but I told you so. I told you so. And now I think they might run the table. Like we said, Penn State, James Franklin got fired. Drew Allar's out for the season. Biggest game of the season is now behind you. All you have to do is stay the course
Yeah.
and run into Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. But
That's that's gonna be the most important one right there. This is easily the most interesting because I don't think anybody saw what happened last year as what's going to be the staple for Indiana. A lot of people saw it as a flash in the pan. Indiana had that one good year. Sure, they had a new coach who had a new culture, but maybe he won't win as much next year. Sure, they'll still be hard to play. They're gonna be the underdog. There's still gonna be all these storylines that if you play Indiana, that should be an easy win. I don't really care what they did last year, and I think Indiana now has asserted themselves as a powerhouse, specifically in their conference. IU has always been known as a basketball school, and with, like I said, Penn State falling from grace, Michigan really fading, and they're no longer the mountain topper that they used to be. Indiana's positioned perfectly to really run the table, and I would argue now that you have the culture of the future, as long as you can continue to recruit and play well, this is going to be an Indiana team that's going to be ranked and has a very bright future ahead of them.
And that's the best part about this. They are doing this and they are beating these teams without the level of recruits that other teams have, including Oregon. Just wait until IU gets a couple of 5-star recruits. Just wait until the amount of 4-star recruits start committing to the Hoosiers. You see what they're doing with what they have now, winning by committee. Add the talent that these other teams have and are not utilizing to the best of their abilities. Give it to Kurt Signetti and see what he can do. We see what he can do with less. Let's see what he could do with more. And that's all I'm going to say on it, because I'm trying not to get excited about this, because it's been a lot of what the hell is going on instead of wow, this is amazing going on in college football. I think this is something that is amazing. The fact that we are talking about IU football in the same breath as we're talking about Miami and arguably Ohio State. They're in the top 3. It's not a crazy thing to say anymore. IU is number 3, right behind Miami in the top 3. And with their schedule, they could stay there.
This is also one of the few times that I can remember where we're seeing kind of, I don't want to throw this term around loosely, but it is what it is. A dynasty in college football, not when it comes to like winning championships, but just like building a legit organization happens so quickly without a major transfer, without a major 5-star recruit coming to them, without a first overall pick potentially at quarterback. Like this was really a hey, I feel like I'm the best coach. I have a great organization. I have a great staff, and we're gonna put our players in the best positions possible to win games. And as you said, as they continue to get better players, I really think Indiana is going to be a problem going forward.
I, I am going to do the war chant when it allows me to serve itself. But right now, I'm not going to do it. I did it enough this weekend, and I think that I'm just going to ride this out until the next time we discuss it because right now, I already have my mark in the column that I was right. So I'm on cloud nine right now.
But so since you're on cloud nine, I guess kind of to flip the feelings. So since you're feeling so high at IU, has your feelings changed at all on Oregon, or how has that kind of shifted how you feel on Oregon?
Well, so even though Oregon lost to IU, I don't want to say that we need to cause panic, right? It's they 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 lost a big game, but they will recover. I think that the only loss that Oregon is going to experience this season is at the hands of IU, which is fine. That is not going to affect them too much come playoff time. I still think that they have a very, very good chance to be one of the top 10 seeds in the CFP, even though they have that one loss on their record. I even went as far as to saying initially I thought that IU, Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State were all going to have one losses. And I was wrong on 2 out of those. 50-50. Right, so fair enough. But IU might go undefeated.
Yeah. Now, my only problem with this loss, I think for the public, I think the public is still like greatly sleeping on IU. And because of that, Oregon's going to really take a hit when it comes to the polls just because people are still going to say, yeah, IU's good. Yeah, they're undefeated. They won a couple big games, but it's still IU. So I can definitely see them kind of tanking the rankings until the end of the year where you do look up and you're like, oh, yeah, they did only lose one game to an undefeated team. And then we'll really have some conversations. But these next 1 or 2 weeks, people are gonna say, "Well, were they always frauds?" Penn State. Oh, they had to fire everybody. Like, there's definitely some narratives that are gonna be spun that may make like Oregon not look as good as they potentially are, just because they lost to arguably one of the best teams in college football, who might go undefeated. Now, next up, kind of the last thing we're going to touch on is just this overall top 25 ranking, which is college football. And the fact that we only have two lost teams in the top 25. And for these two teams specifically, I feel like there's a lot of bias, and these teams could definitely be outside the top 25, and I would not be mad at it. First one we're kind of going to look at is Notre Dame, and second is Texas, because I really don't know how Texas is here, if I'm being completely honest with you. We've seen them struggle against big teams, good teams. Sure, they have their win against Oklahoma, who had an injured quarterback, who, in my opinion, obviously looked like he was injured. So I almost don't even count this win as a major victory. Like, sure, don't get me, still, it's a good win, but this was not the Oklahoma team that we were expecting to see play just because of some of the injuries that they had. And Notre Dame, look, I have no faith in you. I apologize, Notre Dame fans. I really have never had faith in Notre Dame, so they're just biased. They really want you in there. I think it's just because of your helmet colors. I'm not going to lie to you. But how do you feel about that?
First of all, before we get any further into this, what is the animosity that you have with Notre Dame football? Because, I've noticed on our conversations when we have discussed Notre Dame that you have some moxie in your tone when you speak on the Fighting Irish. So
I have a lot of it because throughout my memory, Notre Dame has always stacked their schedule to essentially play nobody every single year to find a way to get into the playoffs and get blasted. And I have felt that just because you go undefeated or you only lose one game, if you don't play anybody, that doesn't make you one of the top 5 or top 10 teams in college football. It's great, it looks nice on paper, but if you're not tested at all during the regular season, I don't want to hear that you really can compete for a championship. And that's just always been my stance on Notre Dame, specifically because how they're structuring their schedule. Now, a little bit different. They're actually going to play a few teams. Are they playing absolute powerhouses like the SEC? Not really. But it's what it is. It's what it is.
I mean, if we're going to get into the nitty gritty, I think that when I saw that Notre Dame was 0-2 and still in the top 25, I had my questions. I don't know how a 0-2 team is in the top 25. I'm pretty sure I've said this on numerous occasions, but I digress. They do get the benefit of the doubt more often than they do not. They did lose to Miami, who is number 2 in the country. They did lose to Texas A&M, who is number 4 in the country. So this may be one of the rare times I give Notre Dame a little bit of grace just because they did lose to 2 top 5 teams to start the season off. Looking at it in the grand scheme of things, it makes sense a little bit. It's not like they got blown out in those games either.
That's true. That's true.
So in that aspect, I will give them the benefit of the doubt. But if they lose to USC, I'm going to take back everything I said.
Okay. So then, if they lose to USC, that'll be my Notre Dame being Notre Dame moment. So yeah, because I'm already waiting for it. As soon as they play somebody, I'm like, oh, Notre Dame gonna have a few mistakes. It's gonna cost them the game, and it just seems like they get outcoached or they get outplayed in the biggest games, in the biggest moments, and that's my biggest issue with Notre Dame.
I understand, and your issue with Notre Dame is valid. And after that USC game, they don't really play anybody. Boston College. So right now it looks that if Notre Dame is going to be a college football playoff team, they have to beat USC and finish out the rest of their season, and they will only have those 2 losses to those top 5 teams on their record, which, knowing how CFP is going to be, will bode well for their chances to make the CFP.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And that's another thing. So, like, if they ever do play somebody like they played this year, it's at the beginning of the season where it's relatively early. They're going to win out the rest of the year. And then everybody's going to say, oh, those 2 losses they had were to amazing teams. Those were kind of just flukes. Wait until they get into the playoffs. And then they play real caliber teams. And then they're kind of shocked at, like, oh, what's going on here? We were undefeated coming into this. We were on a roll. Like, yeah, because you didn't play anybody. I'm just, Notre Dame, man. I digress. So, with this as well. Oh, so how do you feel like Texas or how do you feel about Texas with their 2 losses in the top 25 now?
I think that they got put in the top 25 a little bit too early, but some of that was beyond their control. They beat at the time, top 5 team in Oklahoma, who was not at 100%. That is not Texas's fault. On paper, they beat a top 5 team. Can't take that away from them, right? So now, knowing what we've seen from Arch and how Steve is running that offense down there, I just don't know if there's enough to write home about when it comes to Longhorn football this year. The roster is crazy talented. They're just not producing at the level that they need to produce. And they're in the SEC where no game is a game off. And just like Oklahoma, they are going to go through the brunt of their schedule too. They have Kentucky, they have Mississippi State, which with Arch playing at quarterback, it's a wild card. We don't know if he's going to throw for 250 yards or 68 yards and 2 interceptions. We just don't know. They have to play Georgia still. I'm very excited to see what's going to happen when Texas goes down to Georgia and see how Arch handles that environment, since we saw how he handled the Ohio State environment opening up the season. Right. Don't really have much excitement when it comes to that game, other than hoping that he does not fold like a lawn chair like he did at Ohio State to open up the season. So if we're really going to come down to the comparison of Texas and Notre Dame, I think Notre Dame is the better team right now. I think Texas has the better win on paper. But if that was an actual game where Mateer was fully healthy, I think that game would have been a little different. So, Texas having the better win on paper bodes well for them if they can continue this momentum. But based on their schedule, I don't know. Notre Dame, on the other hand, all they really pretty much have to do is get through USC and then not have any hiccups for the rest of the season, and they'll be fine. Texas, we don't know if they're going to finish the season with 2 losses or 4 losses. And 4 losses is being generous. They could have 5. They very well could. They end the season at Texas A&M. So between Texas A&M, Georgia, Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Arkansas, do you see Texas winning a third of those games?
To be honest, I don't know. Right now, I'm going to say definitely not. But if Arch has any inkling of being the quarterback that everybody has told me that he is, they have some good wins under their belt. Well, this one actually right now, they look like they have some momentum going into what would be the hardest part of their schedule, which is this SEC gauntlet. And if they truly righted the ship when it comes to their play calling, how Arch feels in the pocket, just his overall presence as the quarterback, I feel like this could kind of be the turning point for Texas. Now you're playing some teams that all are trying to get into the playoffs. If you have some really meaningful wins, you go into some place, maybe we have an upset or two. I think this could change the trajectory of Arch when it comes to, some people are calling him an absolute bust. Some players are saying that he needs to transfer, go to a smaller school. They're saying all types of crazy things about Arch right now. So this is really going to tell me a lot, not only about Texas, but Arch when it comes to just his progression of, what are you really as a quarterback? Are you going to take this Texas team to the playoffs? Because they really are going to ride and die based on how Arch plays. And kind of the last thing we're going to get in on this is, I think we are seeing more and more that this NIL era is changing the landscape of college football. More and more teams are paying players to come over, and small teams. Montana has a wide receiver that I'm like, could he be a first-round wide receiver? Where was he supposed to go? Where did he verbally commit to that he decided he just wanted some money to go to? NIL is making college football, in my opinion, a lot more exciting than it's been in years. It's no longer the same top 10, top 15s absolutely dominating college football. Players are transferring, they're moving, they're getting recruited to schools that I was like, they're not even a powerhouse. Why would you why are you going over there? It's because you're getting $10 million a year. That's probably why you're going over there. And because of that, some of these schools that I thought were going to be absolutely dominant are now above average, and teams where I was like, you might not win a game, you're like, oh, are you sneaky good now? Can you upset maybe a top 15 team just because of the talent that you have in the roster coming in? But how do you kind of feel that NIL has, shifted the landscape of college football?
I think NIL is part of the big reason why Nick Saban left and retired as soon as he did. I'm pretty sure he has not been bashful about his opinion on how the NIL was going to shape the landscape of the college football persona as we know it. But on the flip side of that coin, I'm going to say respectfully that Saban has some gall to have some type of feeling about that, because are we going to sit here and act like Alabama has not done the same thing, just not on paper, and all of these other big name programs in the SEC, the ACC, the Pac-10, the Big Ten, all of them are guilty, okay? Let's just stop saying the quiet part and keeping it quiet. Let's just say it out loud. If you were doing it before, do not get mad when other people now have the resources to do what you used to do to other teams to exploit them for their players in their area. It's not fair for you to be able to say, we're Bama, we have better boosters, we have more money so we can get that player. They can't afford him. We can buy him. It's just going to be under the table. So now it's just all legal. It's just, hey, we're going to give you X amount of dollars for you to leave that college and come play for us. You want the money? Now, if the player says yes, that is completely up to the player. I think that it's great the players are finally getting paid for the NCAA making millions and millions of dollars off of their productivity for all of these years. It's finally for them to start getting their just due. I think that this is a good thing for college football. We're going to see teams that have opportunities to play for natties that we have never seen. Imagine if Washington had a full 4 years of NIL capabilities when Penix and Adunze were still there.
They've been nasty.
Or imagine how IU is going to transform now that they are relevant in college football now. Mark Cuban being a former alum, being one of their boosters, watch how they might transform over the next couple of years due to NIL benefits. As a whole, NIL is good for the league because it gives players the ability to have their own decisions and choose their own destiny when it comes to how they want their college career to play out. It also gives them the ability to get paid for their services since they are now being nationally broadcast across the world and they deserve to be compensated for it. It is good for colleges that never had the opportunity to compete at the level of some Power 5 colleges because if they have the resources now, they can kind of buy their way into the competition. It's just like how we are with video games. You go play Fortnite and you spend $50, you're gonna be better than somebody who didn't spend $50. Or if you go buy 2K, you're gonna spend $200 and get you some VC, you're gonna be better than the person who doesn't spend any money on VC. It's the payment by society norm that we are used to now, and now not only in society but in college football. And I think it's going to be good. It's just going to continuously get better. Arch makes a lot of money. Bryce Underwood makes a lot of money. Shador, when he was in college, made a lot of money. But we saw how that bodes for them now and how it fared for them once they got into the league. How is Shador Sanders leading the team in jersey sales? And he has not played a down of regular season NFL football.
Yeah, this is no longer a free to play league. This is, and also it really has changed my outlook when it comes to head coaches. Your head coach no longer has to be the best when it comes to schemes. Because you've always had to be a good recruiter. But now recruiting is so much more than just saying, hey, if you come here, I'm going to grow you as a person. I'm also going to make you really good in football and you're going to go to the pros. Because you have to then explain to a kid who could potentially make $10 million somewhere else, oh, as our second string quarterback, you want to be here because think of all like the future endeavors that you could get by going to our school. I know you're not going to get paid as much. I know you're not going to get looked at like you're the man starting out. It might take you a year to develop. It might take you a year to kind of understand the system and sit behind somebody, but you don't need to go play right away. It's going to like tank your draft stock. Like there's a lot more things coaches have to do now compared to what Saban had to do when it seemed like all he was doing was focusing on X's and O's and coaching players. And I think that's what's going to be really interesting going forward, because now coaches who used to be fine in terms of like they're amazing with X and O's, they're amazing with players, and maybe they were just bad recruiters, those coaches are no longer going to be there because recruiting is such a like high level, high importance when it comes to all of these schools.
I agree. And I'll tell you what, I think that we, not only as you and I, as, critics and commentators of the sport, but fans alike are going to really like what we see on how NIL continues to shape and evolve college football and college sports as a whole. I think the future is bright, very bright.
I agree. Well, really appreciate y'all stopping by for another episode of the podcast. Like I said, leave a comment in the comment section down below. What was your favorite storyline so far in college football? As there were a lot, but I'm still going to go with USC, biggest upset possibly in the last 10 years that they've had. And IU actually starting this dynasty. I'm going to call it a dynasty. They don't even need to win a championship. And just putting a culture and putting IU on the map. They are no longer just a basketball school. This is now a football school. Or maybe now they're only a football school because they suck in basketball. I'm confused about that, but I digress. But we really appreciate you stopping by. If you are new to the channel, new to the pod, make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell to be notified every time we post a video. And we will see you in the next one. Peace.